So I call this past perfect. So I'm here today to tell you something that you already know. Deep down inside, you know it's true. You're not simply you. You are them. You totally are not you. You are so them. And whether you're Chinese or Polish or Jewish or African or Afghani, you are the sum total of everyone who came before you. And I think you are so cool. So that you exist is a miracle. I mean, you come from a long line of survivors. Your people survived earthquakes and ice ages and maybe saber-toothed tiger attacks. I mean, they survived malaria and yellow fever and Black Death. Take a minute to pat yourself on the back. I mean, learning more about the people who come before you, it will change you in unexpected ways. That you exist is a miracle. I think you're amazing. So let's get down to business. There are two kinds of family trees, descendant trees and ancestor trees. So descendant trees document all the offspring of a particular couple. And even in an age like today, when people have fewer children, over a course of a few generations, the tree gets very large. But let's look at ancestor trees. That's the kind of tree that I create. An ancestor tree begins with a particular person, take me for example, and it goes backward in time, documenting each generation who came before, a mother, father, mother, father, mother, father. Notice there are no aunts or uncles or cousins in this tree, just a set of parents for each person. Everybody's ancestor tree is the same size, and it's mind-blowingly large. My niece told me to say it's ginormous. So take this mathematical ride with me. Ancestor trees are exponential. For every generation we go back in time, the number of people who made love to eventually make you doubles. So everyone has 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 great-great-grandparents, 32 3G grandparents, 64 4G grandparents, and 128 5G grandparents. So that's great-great-great-great-great. So why am I telling you this? I mean, most people shake their head. This is very logical, and everybody theoretically understands this. But let's add in some years, some hypothetical years to this. This is not, oh, there it is. So let's say you're in the audience today, you're 30 years old, and your parents were born in the 1950s. Your grandparents 30 years prior to that, in the 1920s. And your great-grandparents in the 1890s. By the time you get to the 5G grandparents, it's 1770. So this is not ancient time. It's only 250 years ago. So I'm here to say that if you feel a connection, for example, to the American Revolutionary War era, it's no wonder you had 128 people directly contributing their DNA to you who were living then. So everyone seems to have a natural proclivity to want to be connected to famous people. And if you do your family tree, you'll find that you also have famous people, maybe some infamous people, and a whole lot of ordinary citizens in your tree. But this brings me to this provocative question. At least I think it's provocative, and that is, what percent of me is Geoffrey Chaucer? According to the records of the Mormon Church, I'm a descendant of Geoffrey Chaucer, author of the Canterbury Tales, among other things. Do you see a resemblance? I was pretty excited when I learned this because I was an English major in college, and Chaucer is considered to be the father of English literature. But the question I had is, what piece of me is Chaucer? So I calculated it, allowing 30 years per generation, and the answer is 1,000,000. So because of the exponential nature of family trees, I had 1,000,000 people contributing their DNA to me in the middle 1300s. So who cool was among your 1,000,000 ancestors from the Middle Ages? And don't give me that line of crap about being descended from horse thieves. Find out who you are. And while you're researching your family tree, why not relive their history? Visit historic homes, dress in costume and go reenact something. Read a historic novel, or plan a trip of a lifetime to the old country. Sometimes I think in order to feel this connection, you have to do these things to scratch the surface and tap into what's inside you. You'll better understand who created you. So relive their history. It's your history. So let's get a little scientific. Not like the other, but let's switch gears a second. This is fascinating. So every human has 23 pairs of chromosomes. Exactly half of them come from your mother and half from your dad. Most of us, I think, associate more closely with either our mother or our father. If you think you're most like your mother, raise your hand. It's a hard decision. How about your father? I think I'm like my father. But really, regardless of your affinity to one of your parents, you are a beautifully blended braid of both. But here's the thing. Did you know that of the 23 pairs of chromosomes, only a small percentage are associated or have been identified as associated with physical characteristics like eye color? And the rest of your chromosomes are unidentified. So I'm wondering, what did your ancestors pass on to you? What mysteries are there in your DNA? And what qualities have passed down through the generations to you? So how to begin doing this family tree thing? Where should you start? I would start with your 8 great-grandparents. Everybody has 8 great-grandparents. Where do they, do you know their names, including the maiden names? Can you find their graves? Where did they come from and why? Why is such an important question when we live in the United States. You know, nearly everyone is an import. So I might as well stop here to tell you why I wanted to do this. I think it's a common experience. My mother died in 1996, and in some weird ways, I never felt closer to her. I feel she's with me all the time. And actually, to say I feel she's with me is not accurate. I know she's with me. And I know she's with her parents and her grandparents. I feel that she's with everyone who came before her. That's a picture. My mother is a bridge that connects me to the other side. Check her out. One day it occurred to me that there's a word for this crowd of people who I feel are with her. this crowd of ancestors who are walking around with me all the time. It's host. It's a host of angels. And someday soon, I'd like to create my own piece of artwork to depict this. But for now, this engraving by Gustave Doré will do just fine. This is what I feel. This is what I know. And it can be cumbersome sometimes walking around like this with all these people. I'm never alone. I have no privacy. And it's freaky, admittedly. I want to talk a minute about surnames because I think surnames are a very interesting part of family tree research. Depending on where your people came from, surnames were assigned about the year 1000 AD. And for what purpose? Taxes. Really, surnames are the predecessor of the Social Security number. So where did surnames come from? Some of the names have been lost. You know, the origins are lost in the sands of time, but many have not. There are location names like DuPont, meaning near the bridge, from the bridge, on the bridge, fields. Occupation names like Taylor or Miller. There are surnames that are connected to physical characteristics. For example, Rossi, meaning red-haired, or white, maybe a person who was known for a long white beard. This last one, patronymics, like the Who's Your Daddy equivalent. John's son, McNeil, Mick meaning son of, and Fitzpatrick, Fitz meaning son of. But the question is, do you know what your surname means? Do you know the surnames of the people who came before you? So this is astonishing to me. I'm an Apple. I didn't even know Apple is a surname, but it is. And here's a list of some of the other names in my family tree. Wisniewski means cherry tree. Essick is a vinegar maker. I think that's fascinating. Yeagley is a hunter. Smith is, of course, a job, blacksmith. Brinton is a town in England. And Cloud actually is an Old English word, clod, meaning rocky hillside. What do your surnames mean? I just think this is amazing. Another reason to do this work is to learn about old-fashioned jobs. These are reported in census records. And this lady is my great-grandmother. Her name's Bertha Smith Yeagley. In the 1910 census, she told the census taker that her job is braider. And I thought, what on earth is a braider? So I called my father, and he was not alive in 1910, but he knew the answer. He said that women in Royersford and Spring City took in piecework from the underwear factory, and their job was to hand finish by braiding the loose threads that went around the top, the neck edge of the undershirts. So I just recommend that you do your homework. You will find many, many fascinating job names that you never heard of and never knew were part of you. I wanted to talk a little bit about immigration because when I do this research, I think, why did people make these trips? And finding out why a particular ancestor came to America is very hard, unless there are stories that survived in your family. But finding out why thousands of people came from a particular town at a particular time. For example, let's say you find out you have a Jewish ancestor who left Pinsk, Poland in 1819. Your research tells you that Jews in that town were not allowed to own property, they were not given work permits, and they were rounded up and forced to live in ghettos. So guess why they likely left. In my research, I have learned many reasons why people came to the U.S., and so far very few to none of them are happy stories. I don't believe people came here generally to find streets paved in gold. They were running away from persecution, starvation, poverty, and horrific oppression in a lot of cases. Those are my Wisniewski ancestors. And in doing a lot of family trees, I feel that I've learned there's a recipe for oppression. And it seems to me it's the same thing over and over. They strip you of your last name, rape you, threaten to imprison your parents, make it legal for the police to kill you. That is really a rotten trick. Take away your religion, put your children to work, and enslave you. And it doesn't matter if you're the king of an African tribe. If you're an ancient Egyptian and they need your labor to build the pyramids, or maybe you're a modern-day Russian woman who's cold and hungry, this recipe for oppression, it just seems to repeat over and over. But here's what I'm wondering. Were your people oppressed? Were your people the oppressor? That's a tough one. So as I finish up, I wanted to offer a few words of caution. Please listen to me, this is important. If you're a person who sometimes falls into the prejudice trap, who occasionally allows yourself to judge people unfairly or succumb to stereotypes, if you fear people who dress in hoodies or burqas, who worship Buddha, for example, or they eat strange foods, if you think all Americans should speak only English, do not research your family tree. Do not send a DNA sample and find the ancient migration of your ancestors. And above all else, do not test your racial mix. So I'm here to say that researching your family tree will change you. You'll understand how deep and wide your tree is. You'll learn about the famous, the infamous, and the ordinary people who occupy it. You'll understand historic events in new ways. You'll learn surnames and occupations you never knew were part of you. And you'll learn about your biases. Researching your family tree will change you. Good luck and thanks for your attention.